Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I invite Mike Doyle up to lead us in the pledge from Troop 174.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. We begin our meeting, as we always do, with public audience. Per the rules of the Board of Selectmen adopted after we were elected, we permit 5 minutes of public audience from each individual. If any individual wishes to speak for a longer amount of time, happy to speak with you after the meeting or schedule a different time to meet. With that, is there anyone who would like to speak at public audience? Joan.
Joan Coe, 26 Whitcomb Drive. Now that the Personnel Subcommittee will be discussing a timeline and actions leading to choosing a town manager, I hope we attract the best person. It appears that there are several recruiting firms that specialize in attracting town managers seeking employment. The recruiting firms in order of preference are Gov, HR USA, Waters & Company, and Randy Frank Consulting. A posted listing for a town manager in a town similar to Simsbury states, the town manager reports to 5-member town council. Candidates must possess a bachelor's degree in public policy, business planning, or related field. A master's degree is highly desirable. Candidates will be expected to have 7 to 10 years, increasing responsibility, experience in executive level public management as a CAO or deputy CAO in a similar community. Candidates must possess a welcoming demeanor and be committed to open communications with elected officials, staff, and community. A record of experience in economic development, budget and finance, long-range planning, and labor negotiations is important. Salaries starting at approximately $115,000 DOQ, depending on qualifications. Residency is required, preferably within 6 months of appointment. I would urge that this process begin immediately with a deadline of December 2017. The Economic Development Commission on 7:30 a.m. January 12th, there were more concerned officials than members of the commission. Since there wasn't a quorum, they had to adjourn the meeting. Since this has become a lame duck commission, with many members resigning their positions, I would suggest that they no longer convene since they have been eliminated from the charter. First Selectman Lisa Hebner should develop a strategic plan for a newly configured Economic Development Commission as discussed at the Charter Revision Commission. I recently went to the library to pick up a book and noticed that the brick walk and sidewalk leading to the entrance of the adult section was crumbling, causing a hazard. After entering the library, I went to the reference desk for information and felt the intense heat coming from the ceiling vents. It appears that the heating coil was defective and needed to be replaced. It appears that First Selectman Lisa Hebner requires written bids on all purchases regardless of cost. This is inconsistent with the policy of the town and caused a delay in replacing the heater coil. The excessive heat was pumping out while bids were submitted and reviewed. Eventually, the town's supplier was chosen. What a waste of taxpayer dollars. While parked at the library, I decided to walk down to the Simsbury War Memorial, since I had not been there. As I entered the site, I noticed that the walkway had granite inserts on the walk that were extremely slippery and dangerous. I called staff and registered my concerns about the liability with slips and falls. I was told that Len Lanza, the promoter and developer of the magnificent War Memorial, fell twice while entering the site. This project had to be submitted and reviewed by town staff, and not one person on our professional staff and elected officials reviewing the plans questioned the liability of placing granite on a walkway. The memorial was finished in November 2016, and only did my concerns in January 2017 require review of the slippery granite walk. On Thursday, January 19th, a sign was placed at the entrance, "Caution, slippery when wet." Is this the final solution to a dangerous situation? At the January 9th Board of Selectmen meeting, the Public Building Committee stated that they were looking at 3 places for a permanent home for SCTV. At the present time, they occupy 1,600 square feet in Eno Hall. Once they move from Eno Hall, the seniors can use that space for their program and possibly their luncheons. One of the plans was incorporating an additional building into the renovations for Henry James Middle School. The second is Scout Hall that is presently being used for recreation programs. The building has 1,750 square feet in the main room and 270 square feet in an additional room with a total of 2,020 square feet. The third and appropriate plan is the move to SCTV to the basement of the library with 2,900 square feet of available space and architectural drawing for the use already developed with an infrastructure in place. The Friends of the Library could maintain their mission in Boy Scout Hall. SCTV would be a welcome addition to the library as a community center, making this scenario a win-win for the town and taxpayers. I recently read an article in the Hartford Courant across Connecticut, powerful video tackling drug stigma.
Joan, it's been 5
This video is
minutes.
produced by the FBI and Enforcement Administration,
Joan,
Chasing the
be happy to
Dragon,
speak
showing
with
the
you after
impact
the
of the
meeting or at a
opioid
different
crisis
time.
nationwide. I
Thank
asked
you, Joan.
SCTV
Thank you, Joan.
to
I
obtain the
appreciate your
video. I just
comments.
have one more sentence. And I was told that they will be showing the 45-minute documentary in February.
Thank
And
you.
all of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter at JoCo, news feed on Facebook, and Simsbury Forum Topics. Thank you for allowing me to finish my one line of comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at public audience? Dr. Rinaldi.
Hi, my name's Mike Rinaldi, 32 Pinnacle Mountain Road. I was here a couple of months ago after the election, and I said at that time I had mixed emotions about us going to a town manager. One of the things that bothered me, I've been in this town for 45 years. I came in shortly before Mr. Shaw retired. During that time, these people up here, Mr. Tansey and Mr. Vincent only spent a total of 6 years in office. All the rest of the people occupied the office during that more than 30 years. Not once during those 30 years, when they ran for either election or re-election, did they say they were not qualified. They never said that somebody else could do a better job. They always said how great they did and why they should be reelected. Yet at the Charter Revision Commission meeting, all 3 of them came and said, we weren't prepared. Somebody could have done a better job. Town manager could have done a better job than me. Why didn't they say it then? That subject has been upon this town for more than 25 years while they were running for office. Called transparency. Let's talk about transparency. The budget. Taxation. The last time I came here, I had 5 minutes. It's like a Twitter feed, you know, you get 144 characters. The problem is that you have revenues and you have expenses. We know we have less revenue coming in, so we need more taxation. We have less revenue, we need more income. How do we get that? We have to tax the people. What's fair taxation? Well, in Simsbury, in our town, we are the 11th out of 169 towns with the highest equalized tax rate. Now, you have to understand what the word equalized means. It isn't just the mill rate. It's more than that. Take my house and put in Greenwich. I pay less taxes. Why? They have a mill rate of 15. But my house is worth more in Greenwich. So we have to control, basically, taxation in this town. People are moving away. Now, I know our first select woman basically said, you know, we need more revenue because we have 4% increase in residents over the past census. So maybe we need 4% more revenue, right? That makes sense. Doesn't make sense. Mr. Blumenthal, who sat on the Board of Finance, thought it made sense, but it doesn't make any sense. Because you don't get 4% increase in population in 1 year. That's spread out over 8 years, 2010, 7 years. Our increase in population averages 130 people per year. That's not 4%. That's 0.6%. So our budget doesn't need to go up 4%. Can't justify that statement. So let me just say, I don't know how many more characters I have. Let me just say something about our budget. The inflation rate since 2008 has been 1.6%. Okay? Our budgets, in our Board of Selectmen budget, fantastic. We've been under 1.6%. That make you proud? It should, but it shouldn't. It's called non-transparency. When every 2 years you go out to bond $2.5 million for road repairs, that's 5% of the budget. $1.25 million out of a $19 million budget, that's 5%. So our budgets really have been going up 5%. You know, we could really reduce our budget to nothing. We could just bond the police station, bond the library, bond everything. We bonded our road repairs. That pleased us. But it didn't solve our problem. Our problem is we spend too much and we don't have enough revenue.
Thank
So
you,
let me
Dr.
just say, before I end, my last character is that your budget should not be more than 1.76% from last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rinaldi. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak at public audience? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to presentations. We're very pleased to welcome Lyle Ray here from the Capital Region Council of Governments, often known as CROG. It is a voluntary council of governments formed to initiate and implement regional programs to benefit towns in the region. It is guided by the chief elected officials. I sit with Lyle on many committees of our 38 Metro Hartford municipalities, an organization the town belongs to at a cost of about $18,247 per year. Mr. Ray, or Dr. Ray, the executive director of the council, is here to explain what the council does as we enter into budget season and tell us a little bit about it. People often wonder where we spend our money and why we spend money on different organizations. And this is a crucial one for the town and one that we've been participating in for many years. So, Lyle, if you could.
Thank you very much for Selectmen, members of the board. My name is Lyle Ray, as I was mentioned. Just to recap a little bit, CROG is now about 1 million people. We expanded it in 2014, 38 towns, and Simsbury has been a very active member of CROG for a long time. I'm going to talk about the numbers in a second here that's in front of you, but beyond that, there's a whole raft of regional services that are provided through CROG that you may not know about. Regional bomb squad, SWAT team, dive team, computer display terminals and cop cars. There's a whole raft, incident management for crashes, et cetera. There's a raft of stuff that gets done that's not on this sheet. So there's a bunch of things. The second thing is, I think it's important to note, is we're the Metropolitan Planning Organization for this region, which means we get federal money. And the Metropolitan Planning Organizations have to approve any spending of federal money in the region. And since most of the money in Connecticut spent on transportation is federal, that's actually very important. So as you can see in the fine print down here, you're in line for millions of dollars in federal money. And frankly, if we didn't have the dues, we'd simply charge a service fee. So it's like the Hotel California, you can check out, but you can never leave in terms of Mko funding. But let me just go over a couple of things. So your dues of $18,000, the transportation planning benefits of $38,000, flyover of $10,000, Regional Planning Commission benefit of $5,800, and then the matching grant program for elderly and disabled transportation of $34,000. But when you look at the fine print below, it's these capital projects that are going to be, as we get more and more ability to move money away from just the federal road aid system. There's a program called LATSIP, which is a state program that gives money to the region rather than using federal guidelines. So Simsbury doesn't have a huge number of federal roads, so that would be a problem in the past. Now more of that money can actually come to Simsbury over time. So you can look forward to a greater expense on that, receipt of a greater expenditures on that. So the upshot is there's a whole raft of services. The last thing I would say is that CROG is also a forum for problem solving in the region. The last time I was here, we were talking about trash, and Mr. Payne knows that very well. But CROG put together a regional bid for waste management services. Right now, you're blessed not to be with our latest project, which is east of the river. We have 40-plus towns with crumbling foundations, with pyrite, perhaps $600 million plus of expenditure. We sort of go around wherever the region needs it. So in terms of solid waste management a few years ago, we helped. Now we're sort of spending a lot of time on the crumbling foundations east of the river. The governor announced a $5 million testing program we're going to administer for the administration. Next time, it's your turn. I mean, we are here to be a vehicle for bringing up issues that are of major concern to towns. And as I say, the current one happens to be on the other side of the river.
I'll ask
Yeah.
too,
Please,
the
jump in.
crumbling foundations.
Yes.
Although it is on the other side of the river, the reason why every CROG, I believe every CROG participant is in favor of this,
Right.
because the potential liability and the numbers are catastrophic, like anything, like any other emergency disaster. So to the effect that anywhere in the state is affected by a natural disaster impacts other towns, this has that potential as well.
Right. Well, to give you one example, if you know Vernon, they have 200 basements that are crumbling, which would cost $150,000 to $200,000 a basement to fix. Do the math. So it's devastating to a small region. And frankly, some state legislators have said, let the town bond for it. Previous comment. Well, they don't have $30 million lying around in the couch cushions in Vernon. So it's a scale of an issue that's very big. This could be hundreds of millions of dollars. So and all the members of CROG have been very supportive of the East of the River folks because, the next time the disaster will be yours. I mean, it goes around and different kinds of issues come up. The other thing I forgot to mention in terms of Homeland Security and public safety is with Sandy and many of the other aspects, we were running sandwiches and water and cots out to everybody in the region. When things conked out, some towns simply stopped working with electricity. We showed up at the high schools with cots and water and sandwiches so that people weren't starving. So it's a regional function. It's not just listed on these expenses. It's a lot broader. I just wanted to give you a sense of it. But there's a lot of things that the towns come together to work together on, and we go from there. So I'd be happy to answer questions to any of the board members.
First of all, thank you for coming. We appreciate you coming out. I think it's great for the people of Simsbury to see a face behind one of the...
Not a great face, but you do what you can.
I think it's a great face. But it's CROG also serves as a policy and advocacy tool for the town of Simsbury, and we found that with the chaos at the state that it's been particularly important in the last few years, and they coordinate and collaborate quite effectively with CCM and COST as well. So I open it up to questions from the board. Cheryl.
I have two, actually. What's the flyover?
It's a construction project. It's planning for a construction project. I don't have the actual details of this. The transportation people gave me the detail, but it was a particular planning grant for doing a flyover. The RPC is the
In
Regional Planning
Simsbury?
Commission. It's a planning grant, and again, I apologize for not knowing myself what the heck that is. And I'll find out and get it to First
And we would have to pay
for
that
Selectmen.
service individually.
They didn't tell me what that was.
That's right.
I should have asked.
It's described in here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you get an
Mr.
answer?
Kelly was telling me it's described in here. I apologize if I was just curious.
Yeah, no.
Well, because,
I
we
apologize
don't
for
have
not-
any highways with
I don't
flyovers,
have
and we
that.
don't have any,
And I didn't walk through the PowerPoint because in respect of your time, there's a lot in there. Shared services.
well, then maybe we can work on my second question is, how are the dues allocated? Like, how do you know how much, does each town pay the same, or
No, it's per capita.
per capita? And how much is it per capita?
Your asking
So
questions are
we're-
pretty basic. We're actually in the middle of the pack on the state, so it's somewhere around less than 50 cents per capita.
Okay.
So, where did I see it?
All right, so flyover is $10,000. Are there any other, these things that you've, like, transportation planning, you described as sort of a general thing?
Yep.
Are there any other programs that Simsbury specifically benefits
Sure.
from?
One good example is online building permitting. You have one of the best online building permitting programs in the United States. That came through CROG. So that's specific. And a lot of those examples in the shared services thing, which I did not walk through, came through grants that CROG applied for and managed. So there's a whole variety of things that are coming in that. But for example, if you want to get rid of your computer servers now, you can hook up to the Nutmeg network and get rid of them and save an enormous amount of money. So there's a whole variety of things like that. But the best simple example is the online building permitting system. And you have building permitting as good as any. And we went from basically paper and pencil to 21st century software, which is a huge leap. And for a fraction of the cost of the private sector.
I ask because we are going into budget season,
Yeah,
and
of
if there
course.
are opportunities that we could avail ourselves of
Yes.
to use regional services or something, then we should know about that.
There are in the handout you have, there's a whole raft of opportunities. I mean, one of the ones that's very popular now is online meeting streaming. So instead of relying on community cable for meetings, many of our members are moving in the direction of having it online, where all the meetings are archived and broadcast on the internet, so people can watch them whenever they want, rather than relying on community cable. We're finding many people are dropping cable, and it doesn't really get to the residents you'd expect. So that's one. The second one that's actually kind of exciting for a number of communities is a human resources portal. So it has a salary survey, draft job descriptions, onboarding when you hire someone, there's a checklist, offboarding when people need to go away, there's a checklist, and that's an example of a human resources portal that's in there. The next one that's exciting is electronic document management systems, going to a paperless office. We have pilots that I think about 6 towns are going to be involved with that. So the way we work on these shared services projects is we start with pilots, frankly, get the bugs out. And there were some bugs in the online permitting. Everybody that was involved in the pilots had the bugs. But once you get that done, then we'll expand it to everybody. So the HR portal, the online meeting video, and the electronic document management are coming up very quickly. We've also done voice over internet protocol, IT, internet phones.
Which one we
If I could
participated.
speak to that,
Yep.
we actually participated in the pilot on that. And what that does is that allows, essentially CROG organizes it all. They find potential vendors, they organize meetings and interviews, and the end result was that we were able to participate at quite a reduced cost in the initial trials of the voice over internet protocol, which went out to, for example, right now it's out of Culture Parks and Rec, and we're looking at the possibility of bringing that over to the library. But, you know, the end result is because it's competitively bid, because these vendors recognize that there are at least 38 towns that may want to participate in this, they price accordingly. So that has been very, very successful for us.
Board of Ed is also participating in
Yeah.
that. We've done that in coordination with them.
They also introduced us to CCAT, which is actually the force behind many of the, I'm on the Municipal Services Committee, so involved with this stuff.
Right.
But CCAT, you may recall, helped us with our first planning work with IT. So it's, what it ends up doing is providing us with a lot of already tested, cost-effective solutions for things.
The other thing they do is they do go out for regional bid on, for instance, salt is one thing we've availed ourselves of with them. So they're different regional bidding.
Yeah, and by bidding these as a group, we save money. The other one that's a little subtler is the whole issue of cloud storage. Rather than having individual computers storing in the cloud, CROG fought very hard, and first Selectman Hebner is well aware of this, to get towns access. The way we had the Nutmeg network, first schools and libraries got it, then police and fire got it, and they said that towns could pay the full commercial rate. And we didn't like that deal for some reason. Anyway, so 4 years ago, we fought very hard to get everybody on at the same price. Now, what that means is you can store things in the cloud rather than having your own server in the basement, which is, you know, a very good thing. But the interesting thing about, as Tom was mentioning, buying in bulk, it's about half the commercial rate. So these are real significant numbers. So buying in bulk, and then the cloud server about half the price of Amazon, Microsoft, or Google is very helpful. So in the future, one of the things we're pushing, whether towns are all ready for it or not, is integration of town and school back offices, which has got some controversy in it. But West Hartford, Mansfield, Plainville, and one other I keep forgetting, as bad as the flyover here, have fully integrated the back offices. So there's one HR director, one finance, one everything. So if you want to do that, we have a forum on February 2nd
I'm guessing no, but
That's a no. Yeah, there you go.
Talk to you later.
I'm stirring up a
We
hornet's
listen,
nest
we
here,
listen.
We're just taking ideas.
but the point is, we were talking about saving money. That's not pennies. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
And
So,
the-
many towns have 2 computer systems. 2 HR directors, 2 property management directors, 2 finance directors, 2, you name it, and do the math. And so, obviously, it's controversial, and that's why only 5 out of 38 towns have done it. I mean, obviously, there's some hornets to be dealt with there. But West Hartford took 15 years to get it done. They basically waited for people to retire. So when one person retired, they said, you're doing the other one now. Sort of finally did it. But those are the kinds of things that, if we really want to save money over time, some of these are going to be a little less comfortable than we've done in the past. That one is, we have 164 school districts, of which 155 are fully duplicative of town functions. So at a certain point, people will have to figure out whether they want to do that or not. But that's an example of the future. The other one is fancy financial software, one of my favorites, enterprise resource planning software that we can get at a fraction of the cost of the old traditional finance systems. West Hartford has done that. It's about the only one in the region that has, but others can too. So, but there are other things, and we're not done, and there's a lot more potential. One of the things for smaller towns, and I'm not sure about you may be too big for this, but many of our smaller towns, including Krog, can just simply not have servers with somebody jiggling the wires. You just sort of get rid of all that and have the CCAT manage all that for you. And you just don't have computer servers and someone jiggling the wires because you don't need it. So that's an example of the future. So we have a lot of stuff in that package I showed you. I didn't want to bore you to death with all that stuff, but there's a lot of material in there. But the potential for the future is very great, and we're getting a lot done right now. But again, we're not done. There's, as I say, way more to do.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ray?
And I will send First Selectman Hebner a note on what the heck the flyover is. It's
is a
driving me
flyover?
crazy because I should never stand up when you don't know what you're talking about.
Well, it says here, statewide flight for GIS information system done at an estimated savings of $8 million over
Correct.
doing individual regional or sub-regional flights.
Unbelievable, yeah. Well, this is one of those deals where sometimes the state asks us to do things for them because they're too busy. Anyway, we did one. This is a very sophisticated set of cameras that take pictures of the entire state. And I don't want to get people paranoid, but every building has a 4-angle view in the state for fire purposes. So now if you arrive on scene at a fire, you can do on your laptop, you can rotate the building and look at where the entrances and exits are, whether there's a propane tank in a place. And that comes down to very high resolution photography. And traditionally what we did was we did a little bit at a time. And the real cost is mobilizing. So once you do it once you're in the air, and do it. It's much, much, much cheaper than doing little bits and pieces at a time. So the state came to us and said, why doesn't Krog just manage a contract to do it all? They gave us a grant and we managed that. We issued the bids and managed the process, and it's almost done in terms of putting the data on the computer system. But it's a huge savings, and that's an example of working together, again, saving enormous amounts of money. And it's really good quality data for planning and other purposes. The resolution is getting much, much finer all the time. It used to be it used to be that you could see a boat in the backyard. Now you can sort of read the newspaper in the driveway, but not quite that bad. But the resolution has gotten much, much better in terms of the quality of the images and also topography. So you have a lot more sophisticated idea of slopes and all that's built into it. But every building, every significant building, I don't think we do every house, has a 4-angle view.
Probably good.
You're making me not want to get my
feeling
my
better.
pajamas anymore.
Go pick up your newspaper and your sweats, you're on the camera, but no, it's not that bad. But the point about it is that you have, for a public safety purpose, every major commercial building and others will have that kind of angle, and a arriving fire crew can simply look and see if there's propane tanks or entrances and so forth right there. They don't have to go schlepping around in the dark to find it, they just turn it on there, put it on their laptop, and off they go. So that was an interesting process. It took a lot of effort. That was not, it sounds very simple, just issue a bid, but it was actually very complicated. We had a large panel to vet the issuance of the RFP, and it came back very successful. So it's a good example. And you're going to benefit from that.
Well, thank you very much, Lyle. We appreciate you coming out, and safe travels.
Thank you, and I will send you a note on the flyover.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, appreciate it.
So we have a couple of more presentations in anticipation of the budget season coming up. Our next presentation is from Jamie Rabbit, Director of Planning, who will give us an update on development projects, their status and potential impact on population and the grand list over the next 5 years. Jamie is going to give some conservative projections of both population and grand list growth, but I want to caution that the further out in time we go in those projections, the less certain the numbers are. So please just remember these are estimates. They're based on the information we have today, and information is constantly changing. So these are not set in stone. They're just helpful planning tools for us.
I'm also hoping that the projector does not actually turn off in 3 minutes. I mean, it's very fast. Should be okay. Again, thank you for having me here this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. A few months ago, Lisa and I had a very brief discussion, which turned into a more robust discussion about recent residential development trends and how these trends will impact the town in the near future. As a result of that conversation, I prepared a brief report regarding recent development trends in town and how they may affect us. And you have copies with a cover letter of that of the 7-page report. I'm not here this evening to go over in full detail every aspect of that report. I'm going to try and touch on some highlights and some actual information that targets what's stated in that report. The focus of the report that was handed out tonight is twofold. First, how does the potential development affect the town's population? And second, how does it affect the town's grand list? The report looks closely over the next 5 years, but also evaluates a potential full build-out of anticipated projects and what those projects could look like with respect to population and grand list.
Let me just interrupt. The full build-out is not likely, so when he gives the projections, that's more the conservative things that are likely to happen. But full build-out is potential if everything happened that's been permitted. But
As we move
know-
forward, I'll get into the details of perfect world versus estimated aspects of that world that we live in. With regards to the report, staff evaluated 11 specific projects. The projects range in size from 20 units to 500 units. They include Dorset Crossing, which is comprised of East Point and Simsbury Specialty Housing, Carson Way and Highcroft and Powder Forest, Mill Pond, Mill Commons, Garden Homes on Hop Meadow, Hoskins Road Development, which was approved under the town's Workforce Housing Overlay Zone, and Meadowwood, which was an 830G affordable housing development. Additional anticipated projects consist of the Gerard Brothers development on Iron Horse and the Silverman Group's redevelopment of the Hartford project. These 3 projects could account for an additional 1,035 units and an additional 100,000 square feet of retail space. These projects in their various stages of completion have an FY18 value of approximately $99 million. So when we looked at this analysis, we had to look at where we were, where we are, and where we're going. So if we go back one slide and we look at these projects here, Dorset Crossing through Meadowwood, and Meadowwood is approved but not under construction. Hoskins Road is also approved but not under construction. But Garden Homes, Mill Commons, Mill Pound, Highcroft, Carson Way, and Dorset, those are all under construction or built. Those represent $99 million in construction projects in their various phases. The projects shown here, Gerard and Hop Meadow, are all for the future. The chart that you can see now depicts the total number of units that we anticipate coming online in a particular year, starting in FY17 with 0, going to FY23 of 215, and then FY, which is the build-out, would be another 847 units. This chart shows the cumulative effect of these units as they come online, and then the following chart will show both yearly and cumulative effects. So again, this starts in FY17 and moves you up to a more prominent, the FY23 is what we're really focusing on, where between where we have been recently and where we could be in 5 years is an additional 1,400 units. This chart represents the anticipation of 1,400 units coming online by FY23. And as these units come online, they will directly affect the town's population. I have a few slides that are coming up that will show you the effects of these units and the relationship to population. But before I get to that, just going to show you a brief slide. I mentioned two primary aspects of the project is where we are with population, where we are with grand lifts. This just shows a quick cap of where we're headed with ratables. It's important to point out just quickly, you'll see a little red box in the bottom left-hand corner. That's dated October 1st, 2016. We have pre and post Hartford. So the Hartford existed prior to October 1st and was fully taxed. When the tax rolls came on for October 1, 2016, the Hartford as an office complex no longer existed. It was torn down. So we started at 130 million. We dropped down to 99 million because the Hartford was torn down. And then that's what the graph looks like as we move forward. But I'll go into more detail on that in a few moments. The additional impacts, as we mentioned with housing, is population, but then we get into the grand list, but right now we're looking at population. This chart shows you population as it relates to housing. So in FY17 with new development, we had 403 additional people with regards to population, FY18, 353, and so forth through FY23, 461. Each one of those numbers represents annual population increases.
Just remember, folks in the audience, as we get further out in year, those numbers get less certain.
This chart shows you the relationship between housing units and population. So you see in FY17, one of our base years, we had 0 increase in housing units, base population of 4. FY18, we have 173 potential units coming online, 353 as a result in population, and so forth throughout. The next slide shows you the impact of that in a cumulative nature. FY20 depicts the smallest population growth of 175, and FY21 shows the largest growth of 518. All of this growth is predicated on the timing of our residential projects coming online as anticipated. We had to make assumptions as when projects will be built out and how they will be occupied. This chart here shows the cumulative effects of our anticipated population growth. Simsbury's projected population of 26,305 in FY23 represents an 11.88% increase from the U.S. Census in 2010.
That's total between.
That's total.
So it's not every year to the point that was made at public audience. This is the total.
Correct. This graph shows the effect that new residential development has on the town's grand list. The red arrow at the bottom left of the slide, as I previously mentioned, is pre- and post-Hartford teardown. The town lost approximately $800,000 in tax revenue from the loss of the Hartford. With the evaluation of approximately 3.5 million pre, 2.6 post, and 3.5 following, it is anticipated that within approximately 1 year after the teardown, the revenue loss will be replaced through new development. So again, you can see that little dip. We start on the left-hand side at 3.5. Just after the teardown, October 1, 2016, we're down to 2.6. And this is in relationship with new development and what we have that we're comparing those 11 projects. And then with new projects coming online, we go back up to 3.521. From FY7, just in conclusion here, in FY17 to FY23 is anticipated that additional 1,423 residential units will be constructed. It is also anticipated that the town's population will increase by 2,794 from the 2010 U.S. Census number. And just as a aside, it takes approximately $40 million in order of new development to generate $1 million in tax revenue. So if we just go back a few, if we're looking at the difference of in FY19 3.5, FY20 3.8, you see a significant jump from FY20 to 21 of a little over $1 million. That's tax revenue. So that $1 million jump represents 40 million in new construction. There's this bigger jump, about another $1 million jump the following year, which is another $40 million, and then you'll see a more significant jump of almost 1.2 million in FY '22 to '23, and that is the anticipation of the Hartford's northern parcel coming online.
So again, caution as we get further out, depending on the market and what it does, we don't know the status of when things will hit. It could be delayed, or, things change. The closer in the numbers, the ones are more reliable. The further out, please just use it as a planning tool. It is not something to bet on.
Yeah, but that's why we really honed in on the next 5 years, giving the economy as it exists today, what we know is in the queue, existing building permits issued, what's been approved, and the likelihood of those projects coming online. And in this analysis, getting into FY '23, FY '23 does not contemplate any development on the southern parcel at the Hartford. That is further, we've anticipated that to occur in a later year. That is anticipated in the full build-out.
So one of the things I just want to thank Jamie for his efforts here, and Jamie is right, this little discussion did turn into months of work, and it did require consultation with Mr. Cook, Mr. Kimball, the director of the town assessor, and it had involved conversations within his department and also with developers, trying to get an idea of what things were anticipated and when they would do it. So it's a tremendous amount of work that went into that. It required going over census numbers, the Department of Public Health numbers. So there are a lot of considerations that went into this. It was a very in-depth analytical research project that really took hundreds of hours. So I want to thank you for that and just reemphasize that this is a planning tool. It is not cast in stone. Any of these things could change at any time.
And I'd just like to point out just a couple remarks in closing that I'd like to, again, thank you for the opportunity to be before you tonight. I'd also like to give special thanks to Sean Kimball, Dave Gardner, Tom Cook, and also Lisa for their help and assistance in this. That, as the project evolved, thank you, Lisa. As the project evolved, it required a lot of interaction between the assessor's office as well as finance, and again, using Mr. Cook as a sounding board as we looked at some of these estimates, as well as reaching out to the Silverman Group and Mike Gerard and others of how their projects are progressing. And if anyone's interested, there is a host of spreadsheets or wanted to speak one-on-one on how some of the assumptions were made. I'm more than willing to do that with you. Are there any questions?
Chris?
So, great presentation. It's hard to absorb, quite honestly. So, Jamie, I'll ask you the question. What were your major takeaways when you look at this data relative to effective planning for the future?
I think what's interesting, if you look at the 2000 U.S. Census from 2010, they actually have you losing population by 2015. Mm-hmm. And they had you losing, I believe, 351 in population. You're going to have 6 or 7% growth in that same time period. Other towns are not anticipating this level of growth. Again, we look at that base year of 99 million, and I do have a couple other handouts for you. But again, the potential growth in a full build-out, which is, there's a lot of moving factors that are well beyond our control, is in excess of 400 million. And that, we're looking at 5 years, but some of that, if the economy stays the way it is, if housing and the market continues its trends of rental versus ownership, not just in Simsbury, but in Connecticut, that trend could build out. Difficulties we've talked about as that trend builds out, you also have legislation that was recently acted that goes at your ability to grow as a municipality from the financial standpoint by the freeze of the 2.5% as your population grows. You're fortunate in the fact that your economy will hopefully grow as the residential units grow. Sometimes, it's the chicken or egg discussion, but a lot of businessmen are looking more attractively at Simsbury as an attractive place to open a business because of your residential growth. So, cart, horse, chicken, egg, I think some of that residential growth at the level and price point it's coming in at could spark additional retail, office, and service growth in the community, or sustain your existing downtown. Long answer to a short question.
Other questions? Mike?
My takeaway from this is this is based on some good assumptions, I think. It's very interesting to see. I don't think anyone would have seen this coming 20 years ago.
Correct.
That this was potentially coming at us. I think our challenge as this board or whoever sits in our seats in Board of Finance going forward is going to be to find that balance so that we can have enough revenues to pay for the additional services that these folks are going to want because they're coming to Simsbury. I think it's wonderful, but I think our challenge is going to be to find that balance. It's interesting because almost all of these properties are along Route 10, which we don't have a lot of control over. Good news, bad news. But it's definitely going to impact us in a variety of other ways that we haven't even aren't fully aware of.
Right.
Police, fire, everything else. But it's all going to impact us, but definitely gives us some more information to think about as we head into the budget season.
So part of the reason I did ask Jamie to do this is we were thinking about the 2.5% cap. And so if you have a population that is growing, you want to keep the same services that we're familiar with, and sometimes you have to grow your budget to meet those services. But if there is a cap that prohibits you from doing that, like last year we had a 3.5%, 3-something budget increase and yet no tax increase because we had the revenue to meet it and we had to meet the needs. Now we have a dip this year, so this year is going to be a little outlier. But generally, one of the takeaways Jamie and I came through that was rather stark was that if this develops and there's a 2.5% cap, we will not be able to meet the needs of a growing community. There will be a gap that grows between development and probably budgets that we would need to meet that growth. So that was one of the initial things that
And isn't the whole conversation on ambulance a great example of that?
it is.
So the population growth we've already experienced puts enough demand on the ambulance association that the trend with most communities is for the community to ante up more money in support of ambulance. And that's already a conversation that started with the amount of growth that we have.
That's right.
So, I mean, there's a great example of, it's a disproportionate impact on expenses to a certain extent, the growth. So,
It is. So, and to Mike's point, you do get the increase in grand list, but you also get the increase in service, especially with residential growth. There are more service needs than you would have probably with commercial or retail.
And some of those services aren't exponential. If
That's right.
your fire and police is serving a certain population, there's kind of a break-even point where it does go exponentially with growth, but there are also other aspects. If it only goes up a little with regards to growth, you still can provide a similar service with the similar assets that you have. I've been asked that question both by the people on the Board of Ed as well as public safety. And for now, the scope of the project I was tasked with, those discussions go well beyond the scope of where we are right now.
But they are, you're right. Those
I'm sure
things-
people are going to use my numbers.
Well, those are things we do need to think about, because we know for a police officer, it takes a year to train someone. So you do have to sort of anticipate and plan and do certain things like that over time. So it gives us a nice tool to start thinking about, well, what are the needs of the town going to be in terms of our core services, and what are we going to need to add in terms of expenses to meet those core services and deliver the quality and value that our residents expect. So it's a helpful planning tool, and it really lays out, as we've been saying for many years now, to our residents, we know this year is a dip in revenue. And because of the Hartford, we've been planning for it. Mr. Kimball, working with the Board of Finance, has set aside some reserves in anticipation of this to lessen some of the tax impact. But we know this is coming, and we know the state is facing a $1.5 billion deficit that they're going to try and make up next year. It's unfortunate that it's all happening when we have this little dip, but there is a path out. So I don't want to give the impression, that this is doom and gloom. It's not. There's a very sustainable path out, and we've got to get through a little bit of a rocky road this year. But then after that, the path looks much brighter.
And Lisa has just one follow-up with that, because some people might say, well, how would you populate the field with regards to growth? The majority of the population were those existing projects. Again, Mr. Gerard's project, I don't have populating until October 2019. So that's FY '21. You know, that's still roughly two and a half years from now, when that project would be populated. And also similar, the Hartford North would not be populated until year 2019.
Just one quick question
Yeah,
on the
sure.
planning. Do you know, and I just heard from listening to legislative discussions, is there any talk of reducing or getting rid of the 2.5%
Yes.
due to the reduction in funds coming from the state to the towns?
There absolutely is. In fact, we had a legislative meeting at the Farmington Valley Collaborative where we brought in all our representatives from the valley. Senator Wickos is actually introducing a bill to do just that. One, because the proposal itself doesn't make a lot of sense.
Exactly.
But given the state's problems, it makes even less sense. So there will be proposals, whether that will be successful or not, I don't know. But yes, they are aware of it. We've advocated it very strongly. Actually, CROG, CCM, and COST have been the leaders in that because it just doesn't make sense. It's not even tied to taxes. It's tied to budgets, which
It's just,
is a strange metrics. So, any other questions for Jamie? First of all, Jamie, thank you, and I just want to emphasize how much work this was and how appreciative of the detail and the research and the analytics that went into it. I'm very appreciative because it is very helpful because it really lays out where we are and helps us plan and makes you understand that, yes, this is a little bit of a blip year, but there's a path out, and there's a path out because we've been planning for it. It's what all the work we've done with charrettes, expedited approval processes, the education, the Economic Development Task Force recommended educating our land use boards. All our land use boards are working on all this, the POCD planning. All these things come together to make these things happen. So I want to thank Jamie again for your efforts.
Thank you.
All right.
thanks, Jamie.
Thanks a lot.
And then our last presentation is Sean Kimball, Director of Finance, is here to present the quarterly financial report for board members. Again, this is timely, right before, as you know, I'll be presenting you my budget to you on February 27th, so this will be our last quarterly update prior to that. But just to give you a snapshot on where we are, issues we're looking at, and things that are out there. All right.
All right, so you should have before you a memo added to your packet today. As Lisa was saying, this is a snapshot through the first 6 months of the fiscal year, so this is all through December 31st. From a revenue standpoint, I've listed some of the key revenue items that we're watching. Building department fees, sort of in contrast to last year, where we were ended up over $550,000 favorable, have been a little slow the first 6 months. Spring is obviously the building season, and we're anticipating that picking up. I just currently, it's hard to say for sure, but it doesn't look like we're projected to hit our budget numbers there. That may depend on some of that varied development that Jamie was presenting. If people come in and pull permits for certain things, we can get, as we did last year, huge numbers in any 1 month. So some of that might be a timing issue. I believe I discussed 2 weeks ago the ECS cut. We are optimistic, based on some recent reports, that might be restored. We're just waiting to see. I think, as always, around this time, they're looking at how investments are performing at the state and also how taxes are coming in. So stay tuned on that. Conveyance taxes are up over budget and will be, looks like, by about a projected $70,000. Municipal revenue sharing, I believe we discussed this earlier in the fall. I think I have, sorry. There we go. All right. So the grants we've received so far are anticipated to be higher than budgeted. This is due to the municipal revenue sharing tax cap, the cap on cars, and sort of a quirk in the way the state valued our reimbursement as we actually share our reimbursement with the fire district. And the fire district not originally listed as a town in their budget. So it was favorable news, and we're entitled to about $185,000 extra revenue there. The property tax collection rate, we're just a little early. January obviously is a very busy time in the tax office, where we really start to see where we are at the end of this month. Property Taxes are due on January 1st, but you have until the end of the month, of course, to pay without a penalty. So I'll be kind of anxiously waiting to hear from Colleen the first week of February to see where we are. But so far, in every month, for what it's worth, we've been tracking ahead of where we were tracking last year, so that's a favorable thing. And then I included sort of another summary paragraph there that you guys already got an update on before about the LoCIP freeze. Again, we are hearing rumors that this may be lifted in the next couple of weeks or months, but we're just going to kind of wait and see what the state does on that too. So we might get some favorable news there. Transitioning, but I should say on both of those fronts, I think as we talked about 2 weeks ago, this is, as we're entering the fiscal 18 budget planning process, these are ominous signs from the state that some of these numbers that have heretofore never been tweaked or cut are being considered. So we're cognizant of that as we start to plan the fiscal 18 budgeted revenues. As for expenditures, we're tracking mostly on budget. There's a sort of table there at the bottom of page 2. Any of those department areas that are above 50%, almost all of them are due to the fact that there's one-time early expenditures that we make, such as pension payments, early in July or August. Same with the general government. I highlighted a couple of them there. General government, for instance, it's a smaller budget, but of that, $125,000 was already spent, which is the full payment to the health district that we make early in the year. So things like that will push it. General government is certainly tracking to be under budget. Two spots that are not tracking favorably at the moment. Public Works budget has the street light line item that we're all well aware of. There were delays in the closing on the street lights, and so the closing was officially completed in November, and I'm not sure where they are right now, but I believe they're going to be relamping them soon. But as you'll recall, it's not until you switch to LEDs that you officially start saving the money. So we're tracking right now to be roughly $50,000 over in that. And on the benefits line also, due to some enrollment changes and amounts needed to pre-fund the HSA accounts for employees that have opted for the HSA funding, we aren't tracking very favorably in that line. So those are two we're monitoring closely and hoping for some better news in the next few months. Finally, and before you, I handed out the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, everyone knows and loves. I'll just highlight a few quick points so you don't have to read all 170 pages. Fiscal, yeah.
It's actually very interesting.
Oh, it's very interesting.
It is. It
I
really
recommend
tells.
reading it right before bed.
Yeah. No, it actually is.
It is. And I should say, it's also a lot of work to put this thing together, and kudos to Deb Sweeney and I suppose to myself as well, but the two of us worked hard. I'm trying to think if anyone else helped us, but it was really not that many. But it is a Herculean effort at times to pull this thing together, and this is my first time doing it from start to finish. I had taken over once before, or twice before. But anyway, you get a real in-depth look at the town's finances. And the good news is we are in a very strong position. Our reserves, as Lisa was alluding to, our reserve position is 12.15% of general fund expenditures. The Board of Finance has a policy of being between 10 and 12%. And that is actually not inclusive of the $1.5 million that they chose to assign last fall to help offset this tax loss from the Hartford. So if we had included that, if we had not taken that action to sort of say we're going to use some of our reserves, which has been the plan for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years ever since we've known this was coming, our reserve position would have been 13.78%. So that's a strong position to be in. And as you saw, it looks like we'll be able to offset that $900,000 dip out of that money this year and still have some left over in the event some of that doesn't come on quite as quickly as anticipated. Two other notes that we're all, areas that we're monitoring. Capital Projects Fund, you'll see in there, if you find that fund, has a negative fund balance of $705,000. This is very common. It's actually lower than it's been before in terms of not as unfavorable because we go to bond every 2 years, and so we basically pay ourselves back. So this spring we'll be bonding again, and that Capital Projects Fund will be far more than the negative fund balance. It'll certainly be much higher. Depends on how much we end up issuing this spring. And, some sort of bad news and something we'll be talking about a little bit more in the budget process, our claims experience for our health insurance. I'm pretty sure everybody knows, but we run our own, essentially, insurance company. We're self-funded. We use Cigna to administer all of our claims, but we pay all of our own claims at the town and Board of Ed. And so we are, for fiscal 16, that the net position decreased by just under $400,000, again, mostly due to just increased negative claims. We are insured for stop loss, some of those things we talked about last budget, but sometimes you can have that perfect storm of claims that don't quite hit the stop loss, but there's a high number of them. So that's something we'll be talking about more. And then the fiduciary funds, our OPEB and our pension trust, the net positions both increased. Unfortunately, that's not due to any market performance, but it's really just due to the ARC payments and the employee funding that goes into those funds. On the whole, for the full fiscal year, as of June 30, the performance of the funds was just essentially flat over that time period. The last 6 months has been a little better, but a lot better. And that's really what I have for the quarterly budget update. Just one other sort of newsworthy item that I'm sure all of you read about. Our neighbors down in Farmington, if you read in the paper, they lost about $2 million due to a fraudulent transaction that was apparently caused by overseas hackers. I did speak with the finance director in Farmington today and got a little more information about what specifically happened. And without going into too much detail, this was essentially an email scam where a perpetrator assumes the identity of an employee of a vendor and requests an electronic payment for an ongoing project. So we are, first of all, constantly reviewing our policies and procedures to see if there's any areas where we could make improvements. And we conducted a recent review, and I'm confident that we would have been protected from this type of scam based on the kind of procedures that we use. For one, we only use ACH payments for very, very limited numbers of transactions, and as a policy, we don't change routing information without independently verifying with a known individual at the vendor. Additionally, we require two-party verification for all electronic payments too, which are both helpful to preventing this kind of thing from happening. And I know there's an executive session later, so we might be discussing this a little bit more as we talk about security. So happy to answer questions then.
I'd just add, in terms of the cybersecurity stuff, part of the reason we formed the IT committee, subcommittee task force was to specifically look at cybersecurity, and they've been very instrumental working with Mr. Cook and Mr. Pisano in funding, and thanks to the Board of Selectmen for funding the Bloom Shapiro IT Town and School Assessment on Infrastructure, Strategies, Policies, and Procedures in Cybersecurity. So we've begun that analysis. We actually were way ahead of it. We've been way ahead of it in terms of KERMA advocating and successfully advocating for some cybersecurity coverage from KERMA. We're advocating for more and for training on that. And you'll see that, I think you'll see in the budget, when it comes to you, there will be some budgetary requests to improve what we already have, although we have lots of things that are going on in terms of protection as procedures, as Sean just outlined there. You can always do more. People say it's not if you get hacked, it's when you get hacked. We will, I think everyone in the municipal and business world views that as a likely impossible situation. We'll do everything we can to reduce it, but if the Department of Defense and various corporate organizations are getting hacked with some of the most extensive cybersecurity. So we're working on it continuously. We'll go over some specifics. Unfortunately, we can't do all of the specifics in public because we would alert hackers to vulnerabilities. So we're not going to do that, but we do want to assure the board, and you will see some proposals in the budget season. I've just asked Tom, who has been our liaison with Rick to the IT committee, and then Chris, who's our liaison. Do you want to speak?
Mr. Doyle, who's chairman.
Oh, Mr. Doyle, right. Sorry, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. So do you want to start, Tom?
Sure. Well, certainly, we've had a number of different initiatives. One was making sure that we were well positioned for disaster recovery. We've gone from a practice of taking tapes daily over to the basement of Eno Hall, where they were stored, to now a server in a separate location. And again, this is thanks largely to the Technology Task Force and working with RIP. So we now have servers over at the high school, and again, good partnership with them on it. So in the event that something happened here, we're in a good position to come back up pretty quickly. Since actually both prior to and during the Bloom-Shapiro study, we started doing some penetration testing, again, at the urging of the Technology Task Force. We've changed practices in terms of employee access to their computers. The passwords are now so complicated that I have to call IT every other day. And again, it's an extensive list. Rick has and Brett in our IT department regularly send out proactive instructions in terms of what to do or not to do when you get emails. And also, when something's flagged specifically, they're very quick to get the word out in those cases. Not to say that there isn't more to do, and we'll again talk about that. But a lot of very positive steps have been taken already. So, Sean, I don't know if I missed anything. Mike, these guys have just gotten the Bloom-Shapiro report. It took some time just to get coordinating with all the different players, but that's got some highlights some strengths and points to areas where we can develop.
Chris, did you want to?
No, I think that summarizes it very well.
So we just wanted to give an update because that was quite a shocking news report, and to let folks know that actually the Technology Committee, were very grateful. I don't know if anyone's been, I mean, we've been, Chris. There's a very talented group of individuals. They really know their stuff. So we feel very fortunate that they are working on that and supporting town staff in such an effective way. So, and if anyone wants to go to a meeting, they're listed on the town website, because it really is impressive to watch these guys. You walk out of there and your head's spinning. But they're an impressive group of folks, and we appreciate town staff's hard work on all these issues to keep everyone safe. So any other questions on financial updates or?
No, I think it's good stuff, and we shouldn't be talking about it in public because we don't want the whole world to know how we're protecting them, just that we are protecting them, so.
Yeah, but we'll make sure that you as the people's representatives are fully informed.
No, that sounds good.
So, thank you for that. All right, with that, we are ready to move on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the first Selectmen's report and ask for, and if people don't mind, we'll start with our Eagle Scout who's been waiting patiently. My first Selectwoman's report is really exciting, but we're gonna
Not as exciting as this.
We need a formal amendment.
Thank you very
Yes,
much,
we
Mike.
should amend the agenda because of the tax refund.
The tax refunds,
Yes, we can go, actually, I don't think we need to if there's a consensus, but we can go ahead and do it. I'll take a motion to amend the agenda to address the Eagle Scout project prior to the first Selectwoman's report.
So move.
second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you.
Vote for sure.
Hello, I'm Mike Doyle, Life Scout, working on Eagle. And the Eagle project is a loafing shed for the Simsbury Community Farm. And I have my beneficiary, just to show that I'm not building a shed randomly, just for fun.
Very
Like
glad
you
to hear.
So the community farm works for Gifts of Love, which you probably know. They help grow crops to give to help working families in need in the Farmington Valley. And they give them food if they need it, that sort of stuff. But also there is the farm-based educational program, which is what I am benefiting, which is for youths and adults to learn about agriculture and stuff. I would have an agricultural joke, but I gave up agricultural humor a long time ago. Corny jokes just aren't my... So, farm, there's plenty of animals there, and the sheep, alpaca, and the cows have minimal shade in the paddock, and on a hot summer day, they're always running around the paddock, running this little tree, huddling up, trying to get shade, because they're too warm. and in the morning they'll go huddle against the barn, which is kind of pathetic because it's like these cows and sheep like leaning up against the barn, trying to find shade. So the solution to that problem is a loafing shed, which is a 3-walled structure, which it will also have a corner where there will be a hay manger to hold hay to, but mainly it's just to give shade, which the animals desperately want. And it's fairly cheap compared to other things that have been discussed tonight.
Whoa.
Sean's jealous of his budget now.
The best comment I've heard in my 8 years.
That's right.
Only about $1,600, somewhere in there, which is very cheap compared to a lot of the other stuff. And probably because it's just wood and a hay manger. And it's 10-foot by 10-foot structure, 6 feet tall in the back, 8 feet tall in the front, sloping roof, simple structure. It's small enough to not need a permit, which I'm very thankful for because it's a lot of bureaucracy to go through.
So
You're killing us.
So we do have the director of planning here, who I'm going to ask you to speak with this week, because you may have to go through it. This might need an 824 referral, and you may have to go through a few hoops, but Jamie will walk you through that process. But he's right there, and you can get his card before you leave.
The workforce words. The workforce for this project will most likely be my family and other volunteers in the troop, which is often what happens. Just an Eagles or a Life Scout working on the Eagle project will just go to the troop, ask for donations from the troop, and ask for people to help. And they'll donate tools. Sometimes they'll go to like Lowe's and ask for donations there, or Home Depot, and they love to donate to Eagle projects apparently. So what I've been told, and it's just they get a lot of help because Boy Scouts is apparently liked. I don't know. Supplies, simple stuff like garbage, dragging stuff. Tools will be supplied by donations, and I'm happy to say that my uncle is a contractor who will probably help out only a lot. A lot. He'll probably have most of the tools. He'll have plenty of resources, and yeah.
So I have a question for Jamie. Jamie, do we need to refer this to planning for an 824 approval?
The terminology in the statute is significant improvement to.
So if
You're asking
you,
us?
as a Board of Selectmen, determined that this project was not a significant improvement to town lands, it would not require referral.
So,
If you wanted to be conservative, you could refer.
I'm going to defer to Mike, who was on the planning commission on this one. Who is our liaison to planning right now?
That would you?
No, Mike.
I'm zoning.
Oh.
I knew I was on one of those.
You meet tomorrow night, so you could make that referral this evening, and we
So
could
we'll
address
delay
it
it.
tomorrow evening.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and do that, because that way there'll be no question, and it's a simple, would he even need to go, or can you handle that for him?
We would handle it internally.
Okay, so our motion, when we get to a motion, will be to refer the Eagle Scout project to construct a loafing shed to the Planning Commission pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 8-24, and to approve the project. Okay? So you may have to go through a few hoops, but Jamie's really good at getting you through them, so he'll walk you through and make sure that you can get, assuming this project gets approved, which I'm feeling like it will.
Well, you could have brought an alpaca.
Is there any other questions? First of all, thank you. You did an excellent presentation. We appreciate the preparation you did in advance, and very articulate, well-spoken, and thank you for doing this. It does improve our community. We appreciate that you're willing to step up and leave our community better than you found it. So with that, may I have a motion to refer the Eagle Scout project to construct a loafing shed to the Planning Commission pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 8-24, and to approve the project subject to all land use approvals?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. You are good to go. And if you want to stay to hear the first Selectmen's report, it is super exciting, or else you can leave. And I won't be offended at all. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mike.
I want to add one thing. I'm Johnny Marshall, the Director of Education Programs at the Community Farm in Simsbury. our executive director has left, so I'm kind of, we have a new one coming on board the end of this week. If you need anything from me to help him move forward.
So you might want to get Jamie's
I will.
card. It's really up to land use, and he'll make it as easy for you as he can.
Jamie, I don't need your card.
Oh, okay. Michael does a little.
All right, so it'll go to planning. If you want to see what happens at planning, you can go, but you don't have to. Jamie can take care of that part for you. All right, thank you very much. Are you leaving because I'm doing the first select woman's?
No, I gotta go.
It's kind of a long-standing joke there. All right, so you're welcome to stay, but please feel free to leave if you like. Wow.
You guys do need merit badge, but this is.
All right, so I am so happy you're here. Thank you for staying. I just wanted to announce to folks that I will be holding office hours on January 30th from 5 to 6:30 p.m. All in the town of Simsbury are invited to come and talk with me about what issues matter to you, especially as we go into the budget season. Happy to talk about the upcoming budget or any other issues that you wish, and encourage anyone who has something they want to discuss to join me then. If you can't make that, you can always call me and arrange to meet with me at a separate time, or with any members of the Board of Selectmen. We're all very willing to meet with anyone. I want to let folks know that there is a Lunch and Learn Clear Captions captioned telephones for people with hearing loss that is being co-sponsored by the library and by the Senior Center, and this is a Lunch and Learn program offered on Thursday, January 26th from 12 to 1:30 for residents learning about captioned telephones. They are free to people who have hearing loss, and they'll go over how they work, how you get one if you're interested in them. It's a really informative program, and there is lunch provided, but you do need to sign up in advance, and you can do so by calling the Senior Center or find the link at the library. The Plan of Conservation and Development is holding a public listening session February 14th at 7 p.m. It's going to be filled with love and compassion because it's on Valentine's Day. Thank you, Jamie. The Planning Commission invites the public to participate in a discussion on, you didn't even hear that, on services or facilities that Simsbury should have, which include infrastructure strategies. The Commission is seeking public input on community facilities and recreation, vehicular transportation, and other transportation, including walking, biking, or transit, and infrastructure like water, sewer, natural gas, electricity, internet, and wireless. Your input is welcome, and we encourage all to attend. It will be held at Henry James Memorial Cafeteria, and I'd like to formally thank Chairman William Rice of the Planning Commission, the Town's Planning Commission, and the Town's Planning Department, including Jamie Rabbit, who is here tonight, for their efforts on this project. It's a lot of work. It's a big document, and really guides Simsbury's development over the next 10 years, so very appreciative for that work. The Simsbury Police Academy is holding its 17th Annual Citizens Police Academy program. Classes will be held on Thursday evenings from 7 to 9 p.m., beginning in February and ending in April. Simsbury residents and business owners age 21 or older are invited to apply. It's a very neat program. If people have specific questions, they can call the police department or Cheryl, who actually took the class. Did you know?
No, I did not take
Oh,
the
I thought you
class.
did.
I was going to, but
Oh.
things got in the way, but I would love to do that.
Well, Cheryl may be taking the
Yes.
class. But they talk about patrol procedures, arrest procedures, accident investigations, use of force, firearms, emergency service teams, and crime scene investigation. So it is a very cool thing. It's free of charge to residents. It's a great way to understand what policing is in Simsbury and what community policing is. The Conservation Partnership area has been expanded. I'd like to thank the Conservation Commission for their successful advocacy on behalf of the residents of Simsbury. Last September, the Conservation Commission submitted comments to the Silvio O. Conti National Fish and Wildlife Refuge, suggesting that the existing Farmington River and Salmon Brook Conservation Partnership area be expanded to include the remainder of Simsbury's portion of the Farmington River Basin and Simsbury's portion of the Westbrook Salmon Brook Basin. The Commission is pleased to report that those suggestions were taken, so we congratulate them and thank them for their advocacy on part of the residents of Simsbury. Snow removal operations in Simsbury, have you ever wondered what they're all about? Well, there are two ways you can find out about snow operations in Simsbury. There is a new, just released, Simsbury TV video out on snow operations featuring our very own Tom Roy and Kevin Clemens, and it really, and some of our truck drivers. It really shows you the process behind it. It's actually very technical, it's very involved, it's hard work, and they go through what's involved in plowing the roads. Also, if you're 18 years of age or older, you can take a ride in one of Simsbury's outstanding plow trucks with one of our great drivers, and that's really exciting stuff. If you haven't done that, it is definitely worth doing. Those trucks are huge, and you don't really appreciate their power until you're actually sitting in one. And they'll show you the thoughtfulness that goes into plowing the roads. We think that the trucks go very fast when we watch them plowing, but when you're in the truck, because they're so big, they're actually going very slow. But when you're on the side, you think they're going fast because they're so big and loud. So it's an interesting perspective there. I'd like to thank those who participated in the Martin Luther King programs and who organized them. The library, who did a film and discussion, Come Walk in My Shoes, and of course the MLK and Simsbury celebration, including Elaine Lang, who just did a beautiful ceremony at First Church of Christ. We had Mike there and Cheryl there and Chris there, and it was a lovely, and of course Elaine, who organized. It was a lovely,
That's great.
That was a great.
beautiful ceremony. And if you didn't have an opportunity to attend, you can watch it on Simsbury Television. I have the link there. There was a phenomenal soprano who sang, and it just the most beautiful voice. And it's worth watching it for that, and a powerful speaker as well. So I encourage folks to listen to that if you weren't able to attend. The last day to pay your taxes without penalty is February 1. Thank you for your contributions. You enable us to keep Simsbury the beautiful place that we like to call home. Christmas tree disposal schedule, paints have already been picked up, but always customers will be picked up on the week of January 30th. I just want to remind folks to help us keep Simsbury safe by clearing fire hydrants of snow if it ever gets to 32 degrees again. Please, I know, I may have just cursed us. First of all, it's really important for firefighters to get to the hydrants, and every minute counts. So if you have a fire hydrant on your lawn, please clear it. If you have a neighbor who has a fire hydrant on their lawn, please help your neighbor clear the fire hydrants. And just remind folks that it is now the law. This Board of Selectmen has passed an ordinance that require you to do that. So but we appreciate your voluntary help. And if you have trouble doing it, just let us know. Give us a call and we can help you out. Help with taxes, I wanted to let folks know that there are trained and certified volunteers with AARP available to assist seniors, but really anyone in town with their taxes. Appointments are required and are available on Tuesdays, February 2nd through April 13th, and those appointments start at 10 a.m. at the Simsbury Public Library. If you'd like assistance with your taxes, please call the Senior Center to schedule an appointment. Winter is upon us. Like it or not, now's the time to prepare for weather emergencies. Just a reminder to folks, if you haven't already, please sign up for town news and announcements, for alerts, for the state alerts. And also, I just wanted to remind folks, we're expecting high winds tonight. If the power goes out in your house, please notify Eversource directly. We've learned from past storms that you should not assume that Eversource knows the power is out unless you call them or you email them, of course. If your power's out, you probably don't have email, but outages can be reported by calling 860-286-2000 or online if you have a cell phone that enables you to get it. But it is very important that you call. If your power is out, call. Don't assume that just because your neighbor's power is out that they know. Wanted to remind folks that the drought statewide is still in effect, so please take efforts that you can to conserve water. We also, reevaluation continues in Simsbury and Energy Systems remains available. I wanted to give folks some updates on economic development because we do have some exciting things happening. The Wednesday is business night at the Simsbury Library. Has some great programs coming up. Timely Security in an Unsecure World is this Wednesday on the 25th. Leveraging the Strength of LinkedIn is Wednesday, February 8th, and Managing Workplace Stress is Wednesday, February 14th. The Simsbury Chamber of Commerce Annual Business Leaders Breakfast will be on March 3rd at 7:30 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. There will be two featured speakers, one of whom is New Britain Mayor Aaron Stewart. The other one has not yet been announced, but will be announced soon. In terms of open for business, we've got a lot of exciting things going on and a lot of new things. A ribbon-cutting ceremony sponsored by Main Street Partnership will be held for KR Styles on February 2nd at 5 p.m. at 14 Station Street, and an open house for the public follows from 5 to 7. We are congratulating them on their new location and thanking them for staying in Simsbury, so looking forward to that. New to Simsbury, a ribbon cutting for Shred Fitness, sponsored by the Simsbury Chamber of Commerce, will be held on February 7th at 4 p.m. at 17C Herman Drive. Shred Fitness offers semi-private training, endurance, and core crush classes, which I'm not sure exactly what they are, but it sounds impressive.
painful.
Yes. It's painful but impressive. And you can check out their website, and I hope you'll join us then. Benny's, located at 562 Hot Meadow, will be having their grand reopening ribbon cutting, sponsored by Main Street on February 9th from 4 to 6 p.m. Congratulations to Benny's. And new to Simsbury, Dana, I'm probably going to get the name pronounced wrong, Dana Kosier, the new owner of Farmers Insurance, will join us for, we'll be having a ribbon cutting sponsored by the Chamber on February 23rd from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. So very excited to welcome these new businesses to town. Appreciate them choosing Simsbury, and we're very happy to support you. Please, as you read my first Selectmen's report, if you go by there, please go in, say hi, let them know that they're welcome to town and how happy we are to see them doing business in Simsbury. And then I have my regular updates on projects in town, which have not changed since the last reading. And with that, we will go on to action items, and it's very exciting because there are really only 2 left. So that works out okay. You have before you tax refunds. May I have a motion to approve tax refunds in the amount of $9,826.99?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Before you is a motion to approve the listing of 23 Mountain Road property with a Realtor and insurance and issuance of an RFP. Before the board is a request to approve the proposed sale of 23 Mountain Road in Terriffill and authorize the town to issue an RFP. As you'll recall, the proposed sale came before the board earlier. So this is the second time you're seeing it. It's been referred to, I believe, already planning, and
Yes, and
they viewed
there's a
it,
positive referral for the sale included in the package.
including with the POCD, but the 824 referral that we have to do according to Connecticut general statutes. This will be in connection with the potential sale of the town of Simsbury property. The town became the owner of the property located at 23 Mountain Road as a result of a tax foreclosure on the property in 2015. The property is currently in disrepair. The total appraised value of the house and lot is $445,000, with the lot comprising the bulk of the value at $73,322. May I have a motion to approve the listing of 23 Mountain Road property for sale by the town of Simsbury and the issuance of an RFP for a Realtor to handle the sale?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. We will now go on to appoint, we're almost done, so it was very impressive that you stayed the whole meeting. Under appointments and resignations, may I please have a motion to acknowledge the resignation of Chris Miel, Republican, as a regular member of the Economic Development Commission effective November 2nd, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? With our thanks, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion to acknowledge the resignation of Lou George, Republican, with our thanks, as a regular member of the Economic Development Commission effective January 11th, 2017.
So moved.
I'm sorry.
We'll go with Chris. May I have a second?
Second.
Mike? Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion to acknowledge the resignation of Todd Burke, Democrat, with our thanks, as a regular member of the Insurance Committee effective January 5th, 2017?
So moved.
Second.
We'll go with Cheryl on the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion to appoint Jan Losi, unaffiliated, as a regular member of the Tourism Committee with an expiration date of December 4th, 2017?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. May I have a motion to appoint Thomas Gilmore, Democrat, as a regular member of the Insurance Committee with an expiration date of December 4th, 2017?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The
Aye.
motion carries unanimously. We go on to review of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 9th, 2017. These draft minutes will become the final minutes unless there are changes. May I, give you a minute to review them. May I have a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes of January 9th, 2017?
We don't
We
need
don't,
any.
yeah, we don't need the motion. Seeing none, these minutes will stand. Thank you. Do we have any liaison or subcommittee reports?
Just a quick reminder that the Aging and Disability Commission is holding a special meeting tomorrow night regarding the senior center at Eno. The meeting will only address the matter of the new plans for the senior center at Eno, but if you are interested, it's at 7 p.m. in the basement at Eno.
Thank you. I'll be there.
Me too.
Any other liaison updates? Chris?
Lisa, I just want to confirm that the Personnel Subcommittee is finalizing the schedule for starting the process of the RFP for the town manager, so.
Thank you. I appreciate the efforts. Although it has not been on our agenda, does not mean things are not in the works. Mr. Cook has been in the process of requesting RFPs that have been sent out by other towns, so the process of research and evaluation is well underway, and the meetings will be scheduled when Chris gets consensus on dates that work for everyone. So thank you for that. Elaine, did you want to give an update on the Martin Luther King, or?
It was, well, as you said in your first Selectwoman's report, it was a great success. It feels like it gets better and better every year, and I do encourage people who missed it to check out the video on SCTV. Their videos are available online and very useful, and it really was a great show, and this year, especially musically, we had some really amazing performances, not just from Jolie Rock Brown, the professional singer who came, but from the intonations and our junior high select choir as well, so.
And for those who didn't hear Elaine on NPR, there was an interview
Oh,
with
yes,
Elaine in
yeah,
her role as a former president of the Historical Society.
Yes,
So
I forgot
that's
about that, yes. we
Also
did,
very exciting.
Which was good, and that piece will run all over large parts of New England, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Western Mass. Public Radio will all pick it up, and it's a nice highlight of the town as kind of unique among small New England towns, so it's a nice kind of way to
Promote Simsbury
Promote
as a tourist
Simsbury.
destination, because
Mhm.
people may not know that Dr. Martin Luther King attended church at First Church. He went to the movies at Eno and walked the very streets that we walk. So that is pretty awesome and humbling to know. So thanks for everyone who worked so hard on that. Are there any other updates?
Good.
Okay. So may I have a motion to adjourn into executive session? I'm going to combine the motions pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-206D and E concerning the selection of a site or the lease or sale or purchase of real estate in connection with the redesign of the senior center and related protected records, and also pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-206C to discuss matters concerning security strategy. I will note for the record that those invited to executive session include Mr. Cook, Mr. Kimball, and Mr. Pisano. May I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. I'm not anticipating action after this executive session, and we will go into executive in the First Selectman's office and then come out to adjourn the meeting. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Jamie, do you want me there?
My husband just sent me a text saying it's getting bad outside. You should come home soon.
really?
Yeah. Now Terry's out.